What's up guys, my name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we do have another brand new ASIC coming from GoldShell. This is a whole new lineup of ASICs. Pretty interesting innovation coming from them. So we're going to talk about the GoldShell Byte. We'll talk about the specs, the flexibility with it, and we'll look at the numbers. We're going to look at profitability and such, and that's where it kind of gets a little disappointing in a sense. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the innovation. So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. Oh man, so my voice is still going to be a little bit jacked up. Did unfortunately have to miss mining disrupt. Got super sick. Haven't got one of those like flu type sicknesses in quite a while, and worst possible timing, just right in time for disrupt. But here we go though. Okay, so this is one of the big news announcements that did come out. This is the GoldShell Byte, which is a new system. Essentially, it's a new line of ASIC. It's not just one specific one. So essentially, the way it works, you have one central unit that is essentially the hub, and you can buy these little cards, right, for each individual algo. Okay, so currently the way it's set up right now, you can have up to 2 slots, so 2 different cartridges you could slide in. And they do have currently an AE card as well as a DG card, so ALEO and Scrypt, which is Doge, Litecoin, Scrypt ASIC essentially. So immediately just looking at it, very interesting, right? Kind of a cool concept, kind of something similar to what comes to mind is like with Locotech and the hash plates, okay? Where essentially you're able to kind of grow on your own. The big limitation for me is just the form factor, right? So the idea is good, the innovation is definitely good. To me, the scale and the execution isn't good, okay? The reason being, number one, you're limited to only 2. So I like the concept of being able to buy these form factor cards because they're going to be easier to ship, going to be cheaper, and it's a good way to scale and grow, right? So typically most people start out with these smaller things and they grow into the bigger ASICs. What would have been nicer is to see this on a much bigger scale, right? The cards, I guess, could be the same size, but maybe having a platform where you can connect like 5, 6, 8, 10 of these things, something on that scale would be much more appropriate. Or just having the cards being larger form factor, period, right? So again, very similar to the concept with like Locotech and the hash plates. That was kind of the cool thing, and that was one of the things we loved with it, is the fact that it's modular, the fact that you can kind of grow and scale along with it, right? So this is kind of along the same concept. Just again, to me, the scale's incorrect here. So the reason we're saying the scale's incorrect, number one, it's only 2 slots. The bigger factor for me is the amount of hash rate you're getting per card, right? So for example, the AE card is 5.5 mega hash, 65 watts. DG card, 80 mega hash, 65 watts. Okay, so the other big thing, obviously super low power. So under 140 watts for both of these things. Okay, so let's look at profitability, right? Immediately looking at this thing too, I wanted to point out, it looks very similar to like a NAS setup, right? It looks like a little 2-bay NAS. Oddly enough, it is a SATA connection, so kind of interesting thing there, but regardless, let's kind of continue on. Let's look at the profitability. So we can kind of say why the scaling is incorrect. So for ALEO, for example, 5.5 mega hash, 65 watts. Immediately looking at it, just eyeballing the specs, when we compare it to their box miner, is exactly 1/10 of it. Okay, so it's 1/10 of the amount of chips that are in the bigger boy. So this is where it gets tricky, right? So currently we know that ALEO eventually in the coming months, most likely the A0 is going to be coming out, but eventually when it's going to get more wrecked is when those bigger ASICs come out, whenever they come out, right? And this is kind of what you're betting against with ALEO. But currently right now, this would definitely be the more ideal one. Like if you're interested in getting one of these things, definitely the ALEO cards, because this is where potentially you can still make revenue, at least for now, until those bigger units come out, and then it's going to be quite different. Okay, so $1.51 is your daily revenue. Your electric's going to be about 16 cents, again, because essentially nothing. So $1.34 profit currently, right? Which sounds good, but I mean, you have to factor in what's going to most likely happen here in the coming weeks or months, or maybe not. Maybe it takes 6 months. We don't know, right? Until realistically, these manufacturers have a reason to release that larger ASIC, they're not going to, right? Meaning until the price action starts kicking up again, which currently ALEO's been on a downtrend. So that plays out better for you, right? I know that sounds kind of weird, but it does, because we know if ALEO were to, in the next coming weeks, go back up to $1, those big ALEO announcements are going to come out, and it's just going to drop and terrorize the hash rate and difficulty. your yield and profitability is going to go down to a fraction of what it is currently, right? But if it stays sideways like this for a longer period of time, definitely works more in your favor because it's going to give you more time to accrue. And it is possible, right? We've seen that with like the RX0, for example. Profitability is so bad on that. Currently, there's no reason to release that larger ASIC, which again works in your favor if you do have one of those because you're able to continue to stack longer. Because as soon as one of those bigger guys come out, it's going to be game over essentially, right? So that one doesn't look too bad overall, but again, it's kind of an elevated profitability because of the current situation, which is going to change. Now, this is where it gets a little more realistic, right? So, and this is why we're saying the scale to me is kind of incorrect, right? So, the Dogecoin side for their little card, it's going to be 80 mega hash, 65 watts. So, as we punch this into the calculator, it's going to generate about 0.4 Doge, which is about 7.5 cents daily, right? And your electric is going to cost you about 16 cents, so you're going to be at a loss, which is crazy to say for something that only uses 65 watts, it's going to be at a loss, right? So immediately right off the rip, not too appealing, even if we go on the degen side, like, okay, we're going to do this thing, we're going to mine a hodl, we're going to go with it, and we're looking at yield, right? And we're saying, okay, we're going to be super on the high end, and when I say Doge, I feel confident it's going to reach $1, which I don't. I'm just saying theoretically, just to kind of visualize this. If it were to reach, then monthly you would be making about 12 bucks at your best case scenario. Okay, currently, again, current profitability $2.30. Your yearly would be about 28 bucks. Your yearly, and this is factoring in that the hash rate and difficulty doesn't increase, which we know again is going to increase. So specifically for like the Dogecoin one or any of these more established coins, you're going to see the similar trend because of that. So the efficiency is terrible because it's the same chips that are in the older units. Okay. And same thing actually with the ALEO one, right? It's terrible in comparison to, for example, the Ice River ASIC, which is going to be 50 mega hash at 100 watts, right? You can drastically see the massive difference in the efficiency when it comes to that. Okay. So this is why we're saying the scale is wrong. Again, if it were larger, let's say instead of it being 1/10 of the little box miners, maybe a quarter, then that would at least make it more feasible, right? So again, if you're going to do this thing, definitely on the ALEO side, just because again, there's more potential upside. It's currently ranked number 478, $89 million market cap. Arguably at the low, can continue to bleed from here, but to me, the risk reward is pretty good on this side. The play would be just to mine and hodl this thing, right? And that's kind of what they're advertising this thing for. They've made a couple claims on here that it's kind of intended to be able to take a risk on these more degen-y, immature networks without investing the $3, $5, $10,000 on some of the bigger ASICs. Okay. So it could make sense if this is a rapid way for them to get these cards out, right? So for example, whichever one is going to be next, let's say they do a Nexa one or whichever one's going to be next on the pipeline, that if it goes first to these guys, then this little system could make sense, right? Because that's the big thing with GoldShells. They typically have had that first mover advantage, not with Caspa, but the ones after, right? So potentially there's some use case there. The difference is that you're going to get wrecked fairly quickly, right? We've seen this over and over. As soon as those big ASICs get released or the hash rate difficulty goes up, you kind of tend to get wrecked, okay? And especially because of the efficiency here. Although at 65 watts, it doesn't really matter. So again, so who is this thing for, right? We've seen profitability. We know it's not going to be the greatest. Again, it is a low power thing. So in reality, you can't expect much either for the price, okay? To me, they're kind of messing up on the marketing aspect. To me, it shouldn't be like marked for this, built for hidden growth, designed for big wins. You're not going to get big wins with this. Okay, let's just kind of be realistic. What this could be advertised for and would make sense is for solo mining, right? They should definitely pivot the marketing towards that market because in that case, it could make sense, right? At 65 watts, even this guy with the bad efficiency, if you're solo mining, it's like a almost why not kind of thing. You can kind of build to your own node, mine to your own node, solo mine to it, kind of support the network, decentralize, and kind of have that lotto factor, which apparently is very popular, right? Those little Bitcoin solo things, the BitXs have been extremely popular. This should have definitely been marketed in that direction, because in that case it does make sense, right? For 65 watts you can run that thing running solo, who cares, miner for blocks. Same thing with ALEO or any of these others that are going to release, because you know they're going to release the cards for all the others, for Cadena and CKB and whatever else that they end up supporting, right? So in that sense, it could definitely make sense. I think that's where the marketing should be pivoted towards. And I know typically everybody's going to say, because of the price and the wattage, that, oh, this is geared towards newer people. And this is where my beef is with that marketing and that mentality, and why I'm not a big fan of GoldShell pivoting in that direction. Why? Because you just get wrecked, right? They market it towards those new people, and what happens? You guys let me know in the comments. How many of you guys did this happen to? Where you see this, and this is kind of your introduction to it, you get it, and you get absolutely wrecked. Okay, that's not the way you want to introduce people into mining. Okay, realistically, ASIC mining is the easiest one. If somebody is new and they are interested and they want to get into it, mine on existing hardware. Most people tend to have a gaming computer, they have a GPU, a CPU. Learn the basics through there. Arguably, that's going to be a much better lesson than ASICs. ASICs are little boxes you set and forget, right? With GPU mining, CPU mining, there's a little bit more into it. It's the more intricate. You tend to learn more because of that, right? So then when you do switch to ASICs, it's a much easier transition. Okay, so for me, I'm not a big fan of that. Realistically, you can make a better argument with the bigger boxes. Like, realistically, if you're going to make the arguments for newer people, I would point them more in the direction, and they don't have more than $1,000 to spend, get the little DG box, get the little mini Doge miner. At least that way, number one, it's 10 times more powerful than one of these little cards. At least realistically, when things do get bullish sometime this year, you can actually realize profit. Again, your best case here isn't very good. Okay, and that's saying that Doge goes to $1. Will it, won't it? We don't know. But considering that's your best case scenario, that's not looking too great, right? So realistically, again, multiplying this number by 10 now makes it a little bit more feasible. Okay, so overall thoughts on this guy, good idea, but realistically, again, like we've mentioned before, they literally have all of crypto mining YouTube on their payroll that they do reviews for, they give units to. Talk to them, get feedback from them. I guarantee you 99% of them would give them similar feedback, that this just needs to be on a bigger scale. This smaller scale doesn't make sense. And even if they were like to ignore that and go with it, market it as solo miners. Okay, that is a very big deal right now. Super popular. We've seen it with all the other brands. To me, they're definitely missing it. Advertise it as that, and to me, at that point, it does make sense, right? That does make an easy, cheap way to get into Doge mining. Again, you can, the Byte plus the free DG card, and then another DG one, it's 314 bucks. Okay, as a solo miner, it makes sense, right? Or even you want to degen a little bit, you can do one DG card, one AE card. Sure, why not, right? In that configuration, it makes sense, but trying to advertise it as a typical pool miner or your regular miner, you're going to make this, you're going to make that. To me, that's kind of not the way, right? And especially marketing it towards newer people, right? That's kind of something that's been a big pet peeve, just because it pisses them off and realistically gets them out of the market, because 9 times out of 10, they don't recoup anything, right? Essentially, it turns into just a decoration on a shelf, okay? So overall, extremely cool concept, just poor execution. Hopefully, maybe they'll listen. Maybe this is just a tester. They're kind of see what the appeal here is. Make it on a bigger scale. Would be super cool to see something where it's definitely more modular on that bigger scale, especially for those people who do buy those little boxes, right? I know a lot of you guys almost like collect those things and have like stacks and stacks and stacks. It'd be cool if they would figure out a way to essentially take the hash board out of there, put it into one larger box, and kind of consolidate, right? So something like that. Again, even just something on this scale, just have it on a larger notion. That would be cool also. So kudos for the innovation, just not a big fan of the execution. If they were to pivot the marketing a little bit, it would make sense. Again, for me, in that aspect, totally makes sense. 65 watt, solo miner, and because I know a lot of people are solo mining with like the L3 pluses. 400 to 500 watts just kind of add up. 65 watts, kind of who cares kind of thing. So Kind of taste your own. It just depends on what you're using this for. But if you're getting this thing with the anticipation of making it big or starting out, like this to me is not the way. If you want to solo mine, similar to like little bit axes, sure, why not? Let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you guys think of this thing? How do you guys see it? Again, very cool innovation. I love the little mechanism behind it. Super duper cool. It's just, to me, the scale's incorrect. But let me know in the comments, guys, what do you guys think? Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I am out.